thank you so much for having me here. Cincinnati is my second home. As I mentioned, I'm a graduate of Xavier University. I also graduated from Georgetown Law, and I summered at Densmore and Show right across the road here. So, a little bit about me. Born and raised in the city of Dayton in the inner city schools, graduate of Dayton John Bar High School, and I also worked in the Obama administration. So when I was at Xavier, there was a man who came to Cincinnati talking about hope and change and dreams, and I bought into it, and so I knocked on doors in Avondale and Evanston and up Queen City where I lived, all the way up to Dayton to ensure that he got elected. And after graduating from Xavier, I went to the White House and interned for Obama and sort of worked my way around there. After that, I worked for Senator Sherrod Brown. I worked for Sherrod Brown for several years. And after being in Sherrod Brown's office, I worked for Kirsten Gillibrand, the senator from New York, who replaced Hillary Clinton. And it was about that time I decided to traumatize myself through law school at night. So I went to Georgetown Law for, at night. I was in law school for 4 years. During the day, I worked full time. I worked for two
making an obstacle.
The first one was Child Care Aware of America, where I lobbied and advocated on behalf of children across the country to members of Congress. And then after that, I worked for the League of Conservation Voters, where I mostly lobbied against Trump's judicial nominees, and also for environmental justice. And it was towards the end that I started to think about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to help. That I wanted to go to a law firm and not be a public servant anymore and afford nice things like salmon, or or that I want to continue to serve the public. So I was down here last summer living on 4th Street, 4th and Plum, and I laid in my bed and I thought, what am I going to do? And I left Cincinnati because we were in a recession. Where I'm from in Dayton, the buildings were getting torn down and my neighbors were moving away and homes were getting boarded up. And I left because I wanted to help. And I was back in Cincinnati, laying in the bed, looking up, thinking, I'm in this situation again, what am I going to do? I'm going to run for Congress because we need help. We still need help. What I did not expect to happen was within days of me moving back to Dayton, we had a Ku Klux Klan march 2 days later after I moved in, back in with my parents. And then a few days after that, we had 15 tornadoes, which devastated the city. And so you have poor people scrambling, small business owners told they have to get a loan if they want to start over, unable to rely and depend on FEMA, although they've paid years of taxes, right? And then several weeks later, a mass shooting in the Oregon district at Peppers, of all places, where I used to hang out as a college student with all my friends who went to Xavier or Miami or UC or Ohio State. We were from Dayton. We would meet up at Peppers in the Oregon district for Thanksgiving breaks, for Christmas breaks. Jesuit school, we get all kind of breaks, so like fall breaks. We get lots of breaks, and so that was always a meeting spot. And I was out that night talking to friends, and someone whispered in my ear, there's been a mass shooting. I said, no way, not here. Impossible. And I looked, and I drove down the street, and I said, oh my God, this is not good. And we immediately checked to see who was down there. Are you okay? Are you safe? Marking myself safe on Facebook to let my friends in DC and my friends in Cincinnati and family across the country and the world know that I'm safe. That's not something that we should have to do. What we have, and I've seen it in the halls of Congress, is we have lawmakers who are bought and paid for by the NRA. We have lawmakers who sometimes, and I always choose to see the good in people, I think that some of them want to do the right thing, but the money keeps them on the wrong side. My opponent has an A rating with the NRA. My opponent has received tens of thousands of dollars from the NRA. And still, he's against universal background checks to this day. He did not stand up to DeWine, someone who is in the same party as he is, and say, look, this can't happen. This happened in my backyard, down the street from my home. No. He turned a blind eye to it. So we have to ensure that we get people in Congress, in the legislative chambers, who not only have the experience, but who understands what's at stake. Whether you're in Newtown, whether you're a 6-year-old hiding from a shooter, whether you identify in the LGBTQ plus community and you're at a nightclub in Orlando and you're hiding under a bar, imagine the smell of alcohol, screams, hiding from a shooter. Or whether you're hanging out with your friends on a summer night in Dayton, Ohio, in the Oregon district, and your boyfriend jumps over you to save your life from the mass shooter. We don't have to live like this. It is a choice that is made every year that members of Congress fail to act. So I stood with my neighbors when we yelled and we chanted and we demanded to Governor DeWine to do something. Do something. Do something. And we got played because he lied. He said he was going to do something, that he heard our cry for change, and he still failed us because he met up with Buckeye Firearms, he talked to the NRA, he took the phone call from Trump, and they decided our lives are not worth it. The money is more important. So we're at a critical moment to really make that change. 2020 is it. We have to let them know when we said do something to the governor of Ohio, we meant it. And the way we demand action, the way we get the change that we need is by voting them out. Voting them out. They are beholden to the money, to the interest, and to the guns. And our lives mean a whole lot more than a bump stop. Means a whole lot more than a background check. Means a whole lot more than magazines. Means a whole lot more than AR-15s and AK-47s. Those are for the military, not our neighbors. So in Dayton, there was supposed to be a gun show that same weekend. That gun show was postponed. And guess what? They have it back on the schedule, back on the books, October 26th, October 25th, less than maybe 0.2 miles from my front porch. No background checks. So how am I supposed to feel? I've been followed by people already trying to take my Second Amendment right. No, I'm not. I had a classmate who said, I love you, and you know I'm conservative, and we have completely different views. I said, I love you too, Paul. He goes, well, are you going to try to take away our knives next? I said, well, if there's a machine that can shoot out 40 knives in 30 seconds, I'm interested in taking that away too. You're right.
That's right.
That's what we need. We need people who can see beyond the talking points. We need change. I went to an inner city high school in Dayton. I had a classmate who died from gun violence. I went to that funeral. It never dawned on me that that happened until the Dayton shooting happened. And someone said, have you ever had to bury a classmate due to gun violence? Now we think of gangs and we think, and I think in the Black community it's particularly normalized. I said, no, I've never buried it. And I paused And the funeral just played in my mind. And I began to think about the childhood trauma that we sometimes ignore that surrounds gun violence. And so I realized, and I felt so sorry, but I remember him vividly. We were good friends, and he died due to gun violence. But somehow the trauma, I had buried it in my own mind. I was hiding in a ditch when the bullets were being fired off. But we didn't have the active shooter training when I was in school. And they have that now. So our babies, they matter. They're on the line. Our brothers, they matter. They're on the line. Our aunts, our mothers, our grandmothers, our grandparents in nursing homes and in rural communities across the country. We have to ensure that we make change. So I'm running on guns, on ending gun violence, and I hope that you will support me in my candidacy. I look forward to defeating my opponent in 2020, and when I am elected, I will be the first African American elected to Congress from all of Southwest Ohio, and we sit steps away from the Freedom Center. And I am so excited about the candidacy and the campaign that we're running. And the moms have my back. I see them everywhere, and I have their back as well. And I hope that you will support me.
We've got our clipboard right here. We're
yes.
ready.
Yes, you have to have
We
our
are
clipboard ready. I took that task from Obama himself. So I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have. But more importantly, I want to
Let's open it up for the all questions for everybody then.
What's the status of DeWine's proposals? I mean, what is it
They were-
dropped down to, and what's the likelihood of any?
Well, they were introduced, Senator Matt Dolan introduced his proposals as Senate Bill 221.
What are they now? What is, compared to what?
There's well, you probably know even better than I do. There's something that's sort of a voluntary background check.
Yeah, it's voluntary.
That a seller of a gun can request that the buyer get a background check and then bring back basically a certificate that sort of indemnifies the seller. But it's completely optional. It doesn't do anything to close the loophole at gun shows or online sales. It doesn't affect that at all.
Right.
Doesn't affect.
And there's no red flag component of his bill either.
Yeah.
What they did is, instead of introducing a red flag piece that would allow family members and law enforcement to remove guns from the home of a person who was dangerous to themselves or others, they are expanding the pink slip